Welcome back to our channel for another deep dive into the thrilling, unpredictable world of Genoa City. Today is a beautiful day to unpack the explosive drama, shifting alliances, and heart-stopping suspense that our favorite characters are currently navigating. The stakes have never been higher, and the emotional fallout is guaranteed to leave a lasting impact on everyone involved. Let us step right into the heart of the unfolding chaos and explore the intense narratives shaping the future. The corporate battleground of Genoa City is currently trembling under the weight of Billy Abbott's manic, relentless crusade to usurp Chancellor Industries, a hostile takeover attempt that has pushed Lily Winters to the absolute brink of her emotional and professional endurance. Realizing that conventional corporate defense mechanisms are entirely useless against a man driven by blind, self-righteous obsession, Lily is forced to execute a profound and desperate tactical pivot. She understands that Billy is operating in a dangerous echo chamber of his own unchecked ambition, completely deaf to the rational pleas of his friends, his colleagues, and even his pregnant fiancée, Sally Spectra, who watches his descent with mounting terror. Therefore, Lily calculates that the only force powerful enough to break Billy's destructive momentum is the patriarch of the Abbott family himself, Jack Abbott. Despite the recent frostiness and palpable tension that has characterized her relationship with Jack, Lily knows she must swallow her pride and cross the invisible boundaries of family loyalty to secure his intervention. She is not approaching Jack as a rival chief executive officer seeking a boardroom advantage, but as a desperate protector of a shared, sacred legacy, hoping to awaken the fiercely protective older brother within him before Billy burns everything to the ground. Lily's strategy hinges on a deeply emotional and historical fulcrum that she knows Jack cannot ignore: the pristine, untarnished memory of the late, great John Abbott. She is acutely aware that Jack has spent his entire adult life fiercely guarding their father's reputation, viewing John as the ultimate moral compass and the foundational pillar of the Abbott dynasty. Lily plans to systematically dismantle Jack's reluctance to get involved by painting a vivid, horrifying picture of exactly what Billy's obsession will do to John's revered name. She intends to argue, with passionate conviction, that Billy is not honoring their father by digging up decades-old, legally questionable loan documents. Rather, he is dragging John Abbott's honorable legacy through the toxic mud of a bitter, modern-day corporate bloodbath. Lily's plea is meticulously designed to strike at the very core of Jack's identity as the family protector. She needs Jack to realize that stepping away, washing his hands of the situation, and allowing Billy to self-destruct is no longer a viable option, because Billy is actively threatening to take the entire Abbott and Winters empires down with him in his chaotic spiral. The weight of Lily's desperation is palpable as she prepares to beg Jack to step directly into the line of fire, hoping against hope that invoking the ghost of John Abbott will be enough to compel Jack to deliver the ultimate, crushing intervention his younger brother so desperately requires to save his own soul. For Jack, this impending confrontation with Lily represents a waking nightmare, a scenario he has actively tried to avoid for weeks. He has already attempted to distance himself from Billy's chaotic Chancellor vendetta, profoundly weary from decades of playing the reluctant savior to a brother who constantly, almost pathologically, sabotages his own life just as he finds stability. Yet, Lily's calculated appeal to their father's memory is a psychological masterstroke that Jack cannot easily brush aside. The mere suggestion that John Abbott's legacy could be forever stained, his reputation questioned by the public due to Billy's ruthless, manic greed, forces Jack to agonizingly reevaluate his stance of non-interference. He is violently torn between the exhaustion-fueled desire to let Billy face the brutal consequences of his own reckless actions and the overwhelming, deeply ingrained duty to protect the Abbott name from public disgrace. If Jack agrees to ally with Lily and Kane Ashby, it will signify a monumental, paradigm-shifting change in the family dynamics, effectively pitting the Abbott patriarch directly against his youngest sibling in a public war of attrition. The emotional toll of this decision is staggering, as Jack must weigh his unconditional love for Billy against the survival of the family's honor, knowing full well that stopping Billy by force might permanently sever their fraternal bond and push Billy further into the darkness. While the Abbotts grapple with their impending internal civil war, a far more sinister, calculated, and lethal threat is gathering on the horizon, orchestrated by the undisputed, ruthless puppet master of Genoa City, Victor Newman. Victor has been watching Billy's erratic power grab with a potent mixture of disgust, historical hatred, and predatory anticipation. Never one to let a crisis go to waste, especially when it involves the spectacular humiliation of an abbot. Victor is meticulously preparing to launch a devastating, multi-pronged attack designed to completely obliterate Billy's credibility and permanently dismantle his delusional claims to Chancellor Industries. Victor's strategy is not merely about corporate defense or protecting Newman interests. It is a highly personal, vindictive crusade to publicly crucify Billy and remind the entire corporate world of absolute Newman supremacy. He plans to manipulate the media narrative with surgical precision, utilizing his vast, unparalleled resources and weaponizing the far-reaching influence of Newman media to paint Billy not as a legitimate heir claiming his rightful birthright, but as a dangerously unstable, obsessed maniac chasing shadows and ghosts. The sheer scale and malice of Victor's impending strike is terrifying in its execution. He intends to flood the public consciousness with a carefully curated narrative that highlights every past failure, every impulsive mistake, every gambling debt, and every ethical compromise Billy has ever made throughout his turbulent life. By systematically destroying Billy's public image and character, Victor aims to render the historical Chancellor loan documents completely irrelevant in the unforgiving court of public opinion. He wants the board members, the powerful shareholders, and the everyday citizens of Genoa City to look at Billy Abbott and see nothing but a toxic liability, a chaotic force of nature that must be neutralized and excised from the corporate world at all costs. This brand of psychological warfare is Victor's ultimate specialty, a ruthless, cold-blooded execution of power that leaves his enemies isolated, paranoid, and utterly defenseless before the final blow is even struck. If Victor's master plan succeeds, it will not just be a minor setback or the beginning of Billy's downfall, it will be a catastrophic, inescapable collapse that could cost Billy his career, his family's remaining support, and his fragile, hanging by a thread future with Sally Spectra. The trap is being set with meticulous, terrifying care, and Billy, entirely blinded by his own towering hubris and desperate need for validation, is walking straight into the crushing jaws of the Newman beast with a smile on his face. In a deeply tragic twist of fate, Billy's downfall is being quietly accelerated by those he mistakenly believes are merely passive observers or even potential allies. Chelsea Lawson, caught in the suffocating, inescapable web of Victor's demands and her own desperate need to protect her family's dark financial secrets, finds herself in the unenviable, guilt-ridden position of extracting crucial information from a gloating Billy. As Billy basks in the false, intoxicating glow of his impending victory, loudly boasting about his strategic brilliance and his inevitable, glorious coronation at Chancellor Industries, Chelsea carefully and methodically navigates the conversation. She pulls vital threads of intelligence, listening intently to his plans and vulnerabilities, knowing that every piece of information she gathers will ultimately be fed back into the ruthless Newman machine. Billy's immense arrogance makes him dangerously, almost comically blind to Chelsea's subtle interrogations. He views her as a mere sounding board for his inflated ego, completely unaware that every word he speaks is being catalogued, analyzed, and weaponized against him by the very people he thinks he can outsmart. The tragic irony of Billy's situation is profound and heartbreaking. He is so entirely consumed by his obsessive quest to conquer Chancellor that he cannot see the enemies multiplying in his own backyard, actively laying the groundwork for his absolute, undeniable destruction while he plans his victory parade. Meanwhile, far removed from the sterile, treacherous battlegrounds of corporate boardrooms and media empires, a deeply personal, harrowing, and life-or-death crisis continues to unfold, holding Sharon Rosales in a relentless grip of paralyzing anxiety. The catastrophic, life-threatening drug relapse of Nick Newman has violently shattered the fragile illusion of his recovery, leaving his family terrified for his very survival. Sharon, who has always served as Nick's ultimate emotional anchor, his true north, and his fierce protector in times of despair, is consumed by a relentless, agonizing worry that threatens to tear her apart. Although she has received the fragile, tentatively relieving news that Nick has finally agreed to return to his rehabilitation program after his terrifying escape, her maternal and deeply protective instincts refuse to let her rest or find peace. She is acutely, painfully aware of how quickly the suffocating darkness of addiction can reclaim a vulnerable soul, especially one as battered, guilt-ridden, and burdened as Nick's currently is. Driven by a desperate, all-consuming need for reassurance, Sharon continuously contacts the clinical staff at the facility, pleading for updates, searching for any microscopic sign of genuine progress or any hidden regression in Nick's fragile, shattered state. However, Sharon's relentless investigation into Nick's recovery yields a terrifying, blood-chilling realization that sends a shockwave of pure dread through her entire being. Her initial relief over his return to treatment is quickly and violently eclipsed by a creeping, suffocating fear regarding the lingering presence of Marie Kirkland within the facility's walls. Sharon's finely tuned intuition, honed by years of surviving the darkest, most deceptive corners of Genoa City and battling her own demons, screams that Marie is not a fellow patient genuinely seeking redemption. Instead, Sharon senses with every fiber of her being that Marie is a toxic, parasitic force actively, maliciously pulling Nick back toward the abyss of his addiction. Sharon fears, with a paralyzing certainty, that Marie is exploiting Nick's profound vulnerability, offering him a twisted, codependent escape from the grueling, painful, and necessary work of true sobriety. The horrifying thought of Nick being isolated in that clinical facility, trapped in the inescapable gravitational pull of a woman who seemingly romanticizes their mutual destruction and feeds on his weakness, fills Sharon with a blinding, righteous, and terrifying fury. She knows intimately that addiction is a monster that thrives in the shadows, and she is terrified that Marie is the very human embodiment of that monster, whispering sweet, lethal lies into Nick's ear precisely when he is at his absolute weakest and most susceptible to the darkness. This horrifying realization forces Sharon to confront the agonizing limits of her own power to save the man she loves. She knows she cannot physically remain inside the rehabilitation center 24 hours a day to shield Nick from every temptation, yet she absolutely refuses to stand idly by while Marie Kirkland orchestrates his tragic demise from the inside. Sharon's paralyzing anxiety rapidly morphs into a fierce, calculating, and unstoppable determination to expose Marie's true, insidious nature and permanently sever her toxic hold on Nick's fragile psyche. She understands that this is no longer just a standard medical battle against a chemical dependency. It is a brutal, unforgiving war for Nick's very soul, a desperate, frantic fight to drag him back into the light before he is permanently, irreversibly lost to the darkness that Marie represents. As she paces the floors of Crimson Lights, feeling a million miles away from the man whose life hangs in the balance, Sharon begins to meticulously formulate a plan to neutralize the catastrophic threat Marie poses, knowing with absolute, chilling certainty that failure could mean planning a funeral instead of celebrating a hard-won recovery. As the sun sets over the turbulent, unforgiving skyline of Genoa City, casting long, ominous shadows over the lives of its residents, a suffocating electric tension settles over the town, serving as a silent, terrifying prelude to the explosive collisions that are destined to shatter lives forever. Lily Winters stands trembling on the precipice of a heartbreaking betrayal, preparing to unleash the full, devastating weight of the Abbott family legacy against a man she once loved, praying with everything she has that Jack will answer her desperate call to arms before it is too late. Across town, Victor Newman sits in the shadowy, silent confines of his imposing office, a cold, predatory, and triumphant smile playing on his lips as the final, inescapable pieces of his master trap snap violently into place, ready to publicly crucify Billy Abbott and leave his lifelong ambitions in a pile of smoldering ashes. And in the quiet, sterile, deceptively peaceful halls of a distant rehabilitation center, Nick Newman fights a losing, agonizing battle against his own relentless demons, dangerously and tragically unaware that the woman holding his hand and whispering in the dark might be the very anchor dragging him down to the bottom of the ocean. The board is meticulously set. The players are irreversibly locked in their tragic, unavoidable trajectories, and the question that hangs heavy, thick, and suffocating in the air is no longer who will emerge victorious, but who will even survive the impending, catastrophic devastation when the truth finally detonates and obliterates everything in its path.